Hi, everyone. Welcome to our fourth interview in this interview series where we are showcasing actors who are doing creative things in crazy times. We all know these times are crazy, yet some people are doing amazing things. So let's be inspired by them, find out what they do, how they do it. Today, we have Jeanne Brown. She is an actor. She is a singer-songwriter, and she is an embodied voice coach. I want to share with you her website because you know how I like to get a visual. That's what I do when I hear about someone. I'm like, what's their website? So this is her website. I just love it. It's beautiful. You can see a bit more of what it is that she does. With actors, she does Shakespeare coaching, audition coaching, voice lessons, songwriting classes. And then with non-actors, she also works on things like leadership coaching, embodied presence, embodied communication. So let me stop share and let me hand it over to Timothy Huls.
Hi there. Thank you so much for doing this. I just want to kick it off with asking you what you've been creating during this time.
I have been really deepening and developing my coaching business, which I had sort of started developing and thinking about really kind of back in January, I would say, of this year. But I really started to do some more development work on what kind of coaching I wanted to do, who I wanted to be working with, and sort of what my branding was. And it's involved all sorts of things like overhauling and sort of honing my website, creating a brand strategy and getting someone to design a logo, foraying into the social media world with that message and that branding. And then also finding ways to connect with the people that I think would benefit from the work that I do. And it's been like a slow build and sort of a gradual build, but things are really starting to kind of get rolling now. And it's been exciting to just dive in before I'm ready with building a business. And I also, you said, what are you creating? And I guess I've been finding that it's been really fun for me to think about creating content. I think that as artists, sometimes the idea of like, what's my content? How am I, showcasing my art or whatever it is that you're trying to share on social media, that can feel really kind of, kind of oppressive sometimes to put it into that format, or feel like, oh, this is how I'm branding myself. But doing that for the business has actually kind of done this sort of like opposite thing for me, where I feel like getting to build that content is a creative process in the service of the business. And then outside of the business, I've really been more focused on music than acting in this season, I would say. And I'm working on getting a couple of songs released, hopefully before the new year. Ideally in the end of the fall, that's kind of my plan. So I'm actually, just before this interview, I was working on sort of trying to wrap up one of the tunes that I'm going to be releasing at some point between now and January.
And before the pandemic hit, you were just like all over the place with performing live in New York City, like these small intimate clubs and venues. You really hit the ground running when it came to like live performance and singing, songwriting. And I just wonder how you connect that with your acting career, if you use any of your acting performance skills to help you be a better singer-songwriter.
Well, I think, and this probably ties into how I'm building the business, the coaching business as well. I would say that really starting from an investment in figuring out ways to be present and ways to connect with my body and my breath as sort of the foundation for non-judgment in my creative process. That was something that really developed for me during my time in grad school at ACT, which is where we met. And
American Conservatory Theater in the Bay.
In San Francisco. I think during the Sky Fest at ACT, which is where students and faculty would work on collaborative, like independent projects, whether it was writing or directing or acting or devising, kind of nurturing that creative spirit of creating something out of nothing. I had connected with this really awesome and talented group of musicians through my friend Julia Anrather, who's a wonderful singer-songwriter that I met like the summer after college. So I was in community with them, sort of singing backup vocals for her at gigs, and I connected with other musicians that way. And I started to feel like, okay, maybe I need to give myself a little extra nudge to work on my own songwriting and my own sort of solo project as a singer, because for me, and it all circles back, because it's like On Voice is about the voice. It's about communication and expression.
On Voice being your
On Voice Coaching and Consulting. So that's the name
Right.
of the coaching business. And
Right.
so singing is sort of like the first way that I ever learned to express and sort of identify myself as an artist, was singing.
So you said something really great a few moments ago about creating content and diving in before you're ready. You create in the face of what? And like, where does your motivation come from?
What I've really realized is that my process really ebbs and flows. And sometimes I'm feeling like really fired up about doing a project. And then other times I just feel super weighed down with things like, how am I going to make money? How am I going to serve my purpose or like make the world better right now? There are so many things going on. Like I remember when I was in college, I used to really struggle with like wanting to rest, and just instead of just deciding to rest and then getting to something later, if I was going to rest or take a break, then I wouldn't really fully decide, and I would feel guilty for not being productive or not doing what I'm supposed to do.
I think there's a fallacy of being a full-time artist or full-time actor, that you have to be working all the time 24/7. And so it sounds like you found a way to recharge.
I wouldn't say that I've found a way. I would say that I am continually on a path of discovery. And for me, incorporating mindfulness into my coaching practice and the embodiment coaching that I do, it's not about, getting to a state of equanimity and just being there all the time. It's about learning what are the tools that you need to use to continually check back in and be able to return to that place. So that's what I mean when I say ebb and flow, because I haven't found the way to, like, it's still hard. It's hard. It's always hard. It's always challenging, but it's like slowly getting better at practicing allowing what is to be, and then knowing that I can come back to it. Most of my resistance is internal. It's not stuff that's happening to me from the outside. So that's a reminder that I give myself sometimes, and I try to not let that switch into guilt, because that can also happen, but that it's within my power to be in charge and be in control of my internal life. And I have the power to work on that and improve that and make choices about what it feels like inside.
So you're On Voice coaching. Now, obviously you're using a lot of your acting skills and your acting training to help performers find their voice. What about non-actors? How do you find the way in to communicate with them? Like, what skills do you find they really relate to?
Before the pandemic, I was focusing more on like working with creatives and performers on auditioning, singing, and like developing creative voice, figuring out how to write an artist bio, how to represent yourself as a creative. Since the pandemic, I've been focusing more on what are the ways that this work and this skill set can benefit people who don't consider themselves creatives, or people who don't consider themselves artists or performers. A lot of what I've been developing with a colleague of mine from Smith College, who also has a background in theater, Eve Marie Mugar. She's a yoga and meditation instructor, and she's also a therapist. And she and I have been developing these workshops, Connect and Create. And we did one in person that was sort of about using embodiment and mindfulness tools to access creativity, even when you're in the ebb time. So being able to create from what is. And then once the pandemic hit, we sort of adapted that model for Zoom. So we looked at, how can we come together and have sort of an intimate community, creative, collaborative experience, while we're also talking about and sort of examining our relationship to being in this virtual space, and how can we bring more humanity to that? What are the tools that can help people find more ease and sort of relieve them of the Zoom fatigue that people are feeling. So some of the groups that I've been sort of looking at and talking to are educators, like people who are teaching, doing remote learning.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to a California politician this week. I'd love to work with like people in politics on, you know, bringing their whole self into the way that they represent themselves and their platform. Because that's one of my biggest pet peeves, like even with politicians that I admire, is like this sort of canned thing. And I think our generation is just like over that. It's like we can see right through it. It's like we want authenticity. We want real people. So I'm trying to help people like learn how to be people.
Oh, I love it. And so what do you, for those non-actors and even those who are actors and performers with your coaching, what do you find that people bump up against, or what do you find that people need the most coaching on?
For me, it's still sort of a process gauging, you know, where I have to meet people and how comfortable they are with some of this language and some of these modalities. Like, is this a person who already does yoga? Do they understand something about, like, when I talk about breathing, are they like, okay, yes? Or are they just like, what do you mean feel my breath? I don't know what that means. Like, where are they on the spectrum of that? The thing that I've seen and heard from a lot of people is just that they are extremely wiped. People are so tired and fatigued and exhausted from working remotely and being on the computer all day. And also people have a really hard time setting boundaries with their work life and their home life at home.
I see that you're really prolific, and you might not feel that way. I think a lot of us feel like we're not doing enough. And I wonder what you do to have integrity and be accountable to yourself.
I watched your interview with Annie Sage. She and I went to Smith together. Did you know that?
No, I did
we
not.
We were in the theater department together.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. She was talking about deadlines, and deadlines are sort of same for me. Like, I have to create some restriction or some deadline.
But you just breathe so much life into everything you do. And we've worked together before, and you've anybody who's watching and wondering about your coaching or your leadership, I can absolutely, I've always vouched for it. I think you're an incredible leader. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing a bit of yourself.
I would say the same to you. I feel so drawn to anything that you're involved in, because I feel like you're such a connector and you're such a passionate, talented person too.
Thank you.
This is my cue to pop in. I'm like, people are giving compliments, I'm in.
Also, you are awesome too.
That was really inspiring, Emily. I definitely connect with you talking about mindfulness and going with the ebbs and flows. I hope people reach out to Emily. I'm linking her website. Turn to her for coaching. As always, I'll also add that you could check out Into the Work, where we actually work on a lot of the stuff that Emily mentioned in terms of resistance and motivation and checking in with what we really want. So you can find more of that at intothework.com. And you can always check out Timothy's awesome coaching. Guys, there's so much on tap here. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.